If you would not like to have the risk of your face appearing on YouTube, then feel free to turn your camera off. But if you'd like to keep it on, that would be lovely. And over to you, John.
Thanks, Phil. Yeah, so we're going to do kind of a little bit of a panel. So I'm going to just share about Hazelnut for about 5 minutes. And then Sophie's going to share about being part of Hazelnut through a growing collective for 5 minutes. And then Lucy's going to share about our new initiative, Potting Shed, for 5 minutes. And hopefully that will give you a good overview and then a bit of time for questions as well. And I'm always happy to answer questions after this or as you see me around as well. So Hazelnut it kind of started unexpectedly. I went to a community farm and I had what Pope Francis would call a climate conversion, where it went from climate emergency being one of those kind of top 12 most important things to kind of understanding that this is the context in which I'm called to minister. And it actually, to me, is the primary issue with it affecting other things. It's not the only issue, but it's one of the primary issues. So with that, the understanding of that being kind of what the issue is, starting a city farm or community gardens seems quite like a logical answer to that. People are sometimes say this is quite pioneering or really different, but I think actually popping church inside out and putting it in nature where we're actually caring for it and getting our hands dirty seems logical in an age of climate emergency. So kind of what do we do? So part of Hazelnut, we started in Bristol. We launched, the idea itself is about 2 years old, but we got land in a really small garden in quite a really urban area. And we launched last September. With part of that, our idea is to grow food and to give away at least 50% of it, if not more, directly back to the community and to be a distinctively Christian community. And this is really important for us, this idea of giving away and this idea of being distinctively Christian, because what we don't want to do is form ourselves into a gardening club. And that might sound funny, but it's so easy to just form yourself into an ingrown institution. And so I think part of this also giving away is something that we just started with. It made sense to us because if we're all, if this is an extinction level event, then I don't want to commodify this. And I don't want to make it something that is kingdom building. In a sense, we're all, as YCCN says, we're all in the same boat. And so we all need to be working together. So at the core of this is kind of generosity. And I think this is the point that I'm trying to make about that is that I think with climate emergency, we've had one of the reasons we have a climate emergency is because we've been consuming. And then our response to our consuming is fear. And I think our response to consuming is generosity, sharing and giving away and not making it about ourselves. So we seek as individual communities like in Bristol to give away as much as we can. We seek as a network of people, and Sophie will share more about the network in a minute, to also be giving away and sharing our best. So that's why this conference is free, and that's why all the speakers that we record will be available for free as well. So that's kind of what we do. So I guess we haven't started a city farm yet, but we have started is a whole collection of community gardens. And these are spaces that are not just gardening clubs, as I said, but they're sacred spaces. And so we actually see our community gardens as church. We worship in them, we pray in them. And there's a whole range of different expressions that this has taken now all over the UK. So I think that's almost my 5 minutes now. So I hope that's like enough of kind of a quick overview of Hazelnut. I think it'll make more sense as we hear about our growing collective and about Potting Shed as well. So I think I'll just hand it right over to you, Sophie.
Hi, everyone. I'm Sophie. I'm based in St David's in Pembrokeshire. I'm going to share my screen if that's okay. I've got some pictures that I'd like to show you, if possible, if I can find them. Or maybe not. Where's it gone? Hang on. There it is. Try that again. So, Derry's Acre or Eru Derry in St David's. Can everybody see that slideshow from the beginning? can everybody see that okay? Is a project that is a collaboration between St David's Cathedral and Eco Darrow, which is an ecology group based on the peninsula out in St David's. But it's a group, but it's also a collaboration with Hazelnut, which is why John has asked me to talk to you today. So whilst we are right out as far west as you can possibly go in the country, there is this link between Hazelnut and ourselves. Now, Darry's Acre was started as a result of wanting. My remit was to engage with the community here in St David's. The cathedral is in a valley and it's very much removed from the community itself. And so my remit was to try and engage with the community, but it was also, for me, it was a way of engaging with people during the pandemic. We were able to meet outside at some point. Sometimes we weren't, but we all know about the pandemic. And so we wanted to find a place that was welcoming for everybody, both those who are churched and those who are not churched, but also a place where we could be church when people needed us to be. And what I found as part of my time at Eruderry is that even those people who have never stepped inside church before, they've really engaged with what we're doing there and have been asking me questions about my faith and about why I do what I'm doing in the garden. We had this really super overgrown enclosed garden space. We were very, very blessed here in the close, but it was very overgrown, 8 foot high, in brambles. And so we had to carefully decide what we wanted to change and what we wanted to keep, because what we didn't want to do is go in there and disturb everything and therefore disturb the already existing biodiversity of the garden. So we were really quite careful to make sure that we didn't do anything too drastic too quickly. I know this looks drastic, but it's a very big garden. So over the time, we've now got a vegetable garden there that we're working with, but we've also got areas within the garden we've got a wildflower meadow here that you can see, and I've been working with children in the garden as well to help them and teach them about growing vegetables and so on and so forth. The reason that John has asked me to talk to you today is about this growing collective, this time that the collective, the Hazelnut Collective. The idea being that there are 3 values or 3 things that Hazelnut ask of us as a partner. They are that we are a Christian community doing some form of food growth and gardening in some sort of way, shape or form, that we agree to the values and aims of Hazelnut, and we agree to give at least half of our harvest away to local communities for free. And actually those 3 things are all things that we as a group, the Cathedral and Eco Darrow, wanted to do anyway. So they're values that we held quite close. The advantage of being part of a collective is that we can pray together. So we get together quite regularly, we pray together, we talk about things that are happening within each of our projects around the country. We can resource each other and we can help each other with if someone doesn't know how to grow parsnips in wherever, we can talk about those things and the things that we're learning as we go along. And I think that's what's been really important, is that actually none of us really have known what we've been doing from the start, but we've been slowly learning together and growing together. And that's what I found really, really helpful about the collective. I don't know how long I've been talking for, but probably far too long. There you are. Over to you, Lucy.
Thanks, Sophie. I haven't actually seen those pictures before. It looks really great. Is anyone else boiling hot? I'm really struggling right now because I'm really, really hot. So I'm just gonna, sorry if I struggle to catch my breath. Yeah, so I'm Lucy. I'm just going to chat to you briefly about Potting Shed, which is our new initiative, which we're launching today. but is starting in January next year. But first of all, I thought I'd very briefly explain to you how I came to be part of Hazelnut. So I am based in Sheffield. I am currently leading a church plant into an urban housing estate. It's an area of multiple deprivation. It is a beautiful area to live in. I absolutely love living here, but it is a difficult area, a very under-resourced, underserved area. So I arrived here being promised by the Church of England an empty church building, which didn't materialise until last week. And I've been here, well, I've been in this job for 2 years, so I think that says a lot. But it was actually a really fortunate thing, because we've had to think differently about how we form community, how we serve the local community, and Hazelnut just happened to fit really well into that. So in the first lockdown, I rang John because I heard about what he was doing in Bristol, and I was like, well, I've got a vicarage here, that's all we've got. I've got a really big front garden. I was thinking about maybe making it a community space, like a bit of an allotment. I'm not really sure. And John just hit me with like a million different ideas, and it was amazing. So we basically started off by inviting some teenagers that we knew through some detached youth work to create a mural of hope on this old rusty cross we had in the garden. And then we put some veg planters in, and we've now got a bit of an allotment there. And alongside that, we started doing some work with the local pond, and I've just come today from doing some healthy holidays activities there. And we started to form this bit of a community, and still didn't have a building to meet in. So we now have church services at the local community garden and allotments. And we help on the allotments before we have a bit of a gathered time and doing sort of worship and prayer. And it's a very flexible way of gathering, but it is how we gather as a church at the moment. So we do now have a building, but we still want this to be part of how we gather and to be part of our patchwork of worship and community and serving the community. And right now I have a load of veg that we've grown just lying on my drive for people to come and collect, which is a really fun little thing that we do. But basically, while I was chatting to John about all this stuff, and he was giving me brilliant ideas, and he was saying, oh, there's now this community in this place that is doing something similar, and this one, and we started to form this collective and meet together. We also started to think how invaluable the kind of information that we were getting from one another was, and how helpful it would have been right at the beginning, before we'd actually started doing this, to have some real curated expertise from everything, you know, from what kind of compost you meant to buy, do you need to buy £100 worth of compost or not, how to make the most out of your veg boxes, how to lead worship services, if you're Anglican, how to get an authorised communion to be outside, all these kind of things, how to find land. So what we wanted to offer is essentially that. So in January next year, we're going to launch a course, a programme, and it will be working from, so January to summer 2022. And we want to take communities through preparing the ground to harvest. So literally and metaphorically, preparing the ground, getting your community garden, your community growing community, your expression of church through growing, whatever it is, how to get that started and going, and to like walk through it together for the first 6 months, so that it has really deep roots and really is on a strong start. So the kind of things we'll be doing, so we're not going to do that much of the input because we're still, well, we'll do a bit of it, but we're still learning, we're still in the first couple of years of this. So what we're trying to do is curate some real experts. So we want to invite farmers, we want to invite people who've been doing this stuff for years, climate experts, the kind of people who will be speaking at this conference, to give us really practical advice. So we basically really do believe in this as a way of forming church communities, of forming expressions of church, even of church planting. It's low cost. It is it's calling us back to our original mandate as humans in Genesis, to care for God's creation. It's an easy way to serve your community. It's an easy way to reach out to the community, because you can't hide away when you're at my house. You know, we're in my front garden a lot of the time. You can't hide away from the community there like you can in the church building sometimes. You know, the idea of giving away 50% of what we have, it's that giving away, I think, is a beautiful expression of who we are as church. And it's such a beautiful way to connect to God in worship. I've had some of my most wonderful moments of worship and connectivity to God through doing this kind of thing, and thinking about nature in new ways and growing things in new ways, and massive revelations about how composting is new life and all those wonderful things that I'm sure you're all very much aware of. So basically, we just really want to help anyone else who might want to do something similar. So like I say, starting in January, we wanted to launch it now so that if anyone is interested, we'd love you to get in touch so we can start to craft this around the exact people who are going to be joining in. So if you've got any ideas and if you know what kind of land you might be on, all that kind of stuff, so we can start to craft it for those who want to be involved. But if you would like to know more, we have a web page on Hazelnut. So it's the Hazelnut Community Farm / potting shed. And there's a link on there so you can get in touch. But I think we're moving to a Q&A now, but yeah, that's my piece.
Amazing, amazing. Thank you, all three of you, for everything you shared just then. I hope that gives you guys sort of a flavour of who we are and what we do. Moving into sort of a time of questions, we've actually got two questions in the chat already that are kind of directly related to what Lucy's just been sharing about, in terms of wanting to do this, but not wondering how, you know. And so I don't know if either of you have any thoughts on this to share now, sort of around how do you form this kind of community, firstly, and secondly, land. How does that come about? I know that there's kind of various stories with land. So any of you want to kind of chip in on one of those two things?
I'm happy to start with the we question, which I think is a really good one. So when I started, basically, I just wanted to talk to anybody who would listen. And I found that some people got it and some people didn't. Some people were confused. Some people were even like, this is not a great idea. You probably shouldn't do it. Someone high up in the Church of England gave me my worst advice ever on it. And some people that barely went to church got it instantly. Actually, most people that don't go to church understood this quicker because they didn't have the parameters around about what church could or couldn't look like. So what we did is we spent 6 months going around and seeing and talking to anybody that would talk to us about it, and we began to gather those that were interested from it. Early doors, I met with Andy, who's sitting over there, with Gina, and Andy's with Russia, and I just got an email, sent a cold email, and said, "Hey, can we meet?" And the thing is, we didn't have any idea what we were doing. I mean, it was just an idea, and already Russia was like, "We totally want to support you and have you be a partner in action." So for us, that was huge to have that bit of support behind us. And Al Russia has agreed to be a part of the potting shed as well and offer some information, and they're part of the experts. So we're really excited about that. I think the other thing is around the we as well, is that it's just continued to, once we've actually found land and been established, it has made more sense to people, and a lot of people that didn't get it have come along. But it has been a process for sure. It didn't just happen. It was a lot of hard work, and I think one of the reasons I just want to say this too is around the potting shed is I just felt like I wish I had someone I could have talked to about it, and it just felt like such a ludicrous idea to start with. And it feels like through COVID and through climate emergency issues, it's less and less of a ludicrous idea, and more people are talking about it, wanting to start this. And so that's why we're offering potting shed, because there's a lot of people I think that want to do this. And I will say this lastly as well, is that, like Lucy said, none of us are experts, but together we make quite a lot of expertise, because the idea is that we want to create space for people who are new into climate emergency and are just wanting to get going on this, to be able to engage and start working before they have just, you're not an expert just when you have 30 years experience. You can get going now.
If I could just dive into the land question as well, I think that's a really important question, and I think that is something we will explore in Potting Shed if you don't have any land yet, how to sort of source them. What I would say is the Church of England has a lot of land. So if you happen to belong to the Church of England, that's a good start. So that's, talk to your diocese. The other thing I'd say is the councils across the country own a lot of land. And they love community projects. So like I say, I've just been down at our local community pond. I formed a friend of the pond group, and we're now planting planters of veg there. And, there is a lot of land out there. It's about who you talk to. You don't have to own the land. You know, we've just used our front garden as well. You don't, if you want to do that kind of thing, you know, any land, even like 3 veg boxes in each person's garden, and you just create a network of it in your area and gather together. So there are ways, if you want a specific community garden, there's definitely ways of getting that. But I would also say, just have a look at what land's around that could be developed and find out who owns it and talk to them about it.
One area of land that we've just come across here, I'm in the church in Wales, but there's it's a disused graveyard, a disused cemetery that's been closed down. No one's been looking after it. It's all overgrown, and the church has said that we can use it. So it does have a lot of Japanese knotweed, so that's taken a 5-year program to get rid of that. But we are now in a
compost is talking about rich land. I mean,
yeah, so it's going to be amazing compost. Thanks for that, John. Yeah, it took a minute there for a second, but yeah, so that's there are some really, you know, the neglected pieces of land. The piece of land that Derry's Acre was built on was overgrown with 8 foot of brambles. It's just been left because the church cannot afford to look after it. So
Brilliant, very helpful. I've got another question here from Rosie. Is the Potting Shed initiative going to be an international one?
Absolutely. I think that's and I think someone else put the Christian food movement. So I think we're really excited about making connections with people all over. I think and some of our other speakers will address this too, is I think we want to see climate emergency is so much bigger than just middle class white, and that's we need to be learning from. We need to throw the doors open and learn from people from all over the world, because I reckon there's pieces of expertise that we can put together from people that have been working in many different temperatures and areas and things. So yeah, I think we're really open to creating this and opening the doors, and I'm hoping that next year's conference, if we do another one of these, we'll have much more of an international flavor again and have speakers from all over the world as well and what they're doing in their area. So we'll see. That's just an idea, but absolutely.
Fantastic. Lucy, did you want to add to that?
Yeah, just very quickly, in terms of practically, Potting Shed, I don't think I mentioned this, Potting Shed will mainly be online, so it will be accessed from anywhere. Part of it we'd love to do some site visits, so there may be practical limitations to how far you want to travel. But yeah, it will be, most of the sessions will be open internationally because it'll be online.
If people would like to join, particularly from countries like Spain and Portugal, and then we can have an excuse to come and visit you, that would be really appreciated.
Actively encouraged, yeah. Definitely.
That makes sense in so many ways. Yeah,
I know, completely. We've just got one more question here, and that's Stephen is just asking if we've been in touch with Christians from other communities involved in land, garden, farms since the 1970s. So maybe asking about maybe more established things that we've been connecting with. Anyone got any thoughts on that?
Yeah, so I mean, I think we've found that the more we thought we had a unique idea, the more we found that other people had been doing it for a long time. And actually, instead of discouraging us, it to us just felt like we're kind of riding the wave of what God is already doing. And there have been people, and in many ways with the climate advocacy, we feel like we're standing on the shoulders of people that have gone before us. So absolutely. One of a great connection we've had is with Hillfield Friary. He's also a partner in action, and they've been, I mean, the community they've formed is absolutely beautiful. And so, there's so many monastic communities and new monastic. Actually, that's where kind of the roots of it for me happened in an old abbey, a rundown abbey up in Scotland. So, yeah, absolutely. I think there's been loads of people doing it for a long time, and we seem to connect more and more with people who have had a long history of it. Yeah, absolutely. Can I just say, as we come to an end, I'm happy to answer any more practical questions, and I'll go over to the social area. And I think there's an area that says more chat. I'm happy to talk really practically with you and maybe take about 10, 15 minutes. If you have any more questions, I'm happy to do that if anyone's interested.
Fantastic. Well, thank you all three for taking the time to answer some questions now. And thank you everyone for joining us. As John says, if you want to continue conversations, head over to the social area. But we are going to now have a break to get some dinner before our final session of the day. So either see you in the social area or see you at, what time is it? 6, 7 o'clock for our final session. And yeah, thanks for joining.